What's the main reason hammerhead sharks swim in big groups? Like, is it more for safety, hunting, or something else?
So, um, well, I studied them at an underwater mountain, what we call a seamount, and they were in groups during the day. And I was always kind of, why do they form groups? Because they're big. Why they don't have to worry too much about predators. And and people always, when they look at a school, they think it's a phalanx of soldiers marching in line. A body length apart and in the same direction. And they're doing that to some part. But individuals leave that. Now these schools at the Seamount, which I said were primarily made of females, and the females, it's kind of with sharks. When they give birth, it could be almost a third of their body mass, the female. So she puts a lot of energy into having babies, and they don't get um, reproductively mature until larger than the males. And so in the seamount, they move offshore earlier than the males. They form their schools and they fight amongst each other. And these vixen females, the big ones, they can establish their position in the center. And then the males come darting in and they rotate their clasper in a very provocative way and pair it with a large one. So the schooling in part has to do at the seamount with mate selection. Um, Now, generally, when I've followed them away from the seamount, and I have many of them tagged at the seamount, and I can detect them with my receiver. I just detect one. So when they're going out and foraging, I think they're doing it by themselves. Um, But then they may move, as I said earlier, when we tagged them at Wolf Island. Uh, I think a dozen of them moved at the same time, uh, moved over to Wolf Island. And also, when I was at the Seamount, um, the sharks disappeared. And so, oh, what? Why they disappear? And they disappeared in groups. Because I had a monitor there. I'm listening. We're detecting when they leave, and I assumed that if they left within 15 minutes or maybe together. But anyway, um, there was an upwelling event. That's cold water comes up, and they left at that time, and then they came back. Um, to my surprise. And so I said, well, how the hell did I do that? So this was way back when, because I'm an old fart. And it's just when they got satellites up. And so we're able to look at the temperature, the satellite temperatures, and show that there's an upwelling. So it's kind of like as scientists, we like we like to be creative and we like to use different tools. Here we are on the ground putting these electronic tags on the sharks, and then we're finding out when they leave and when they come back, and then we're using a satellite all the way up there to detect the water mass movement. So that one was really kind of fun because we use these different techniques. So I hope I've given you the thing about it is the ocean. It's so easy to study animals on land. We can see so far, and so people have learned so much about birds in particular. Birds are very easy to study, but sharks, they're hard to study. I mean, as I said, and and in terms of getting in the water and studying them, which I did, almost nobody ever even now, very few people actually have been able to spend day after day in that school looking at the sharks and seeing what they do. And that's what made it such a wonderful. When you study things, if you can find a system where you can actually see the sharks, see them, or your animal, like we did at the Seamount, uh, and then, or white sharks off the Farallon Islands, seeing them feed. I mean, seeing predation is very rare. And so when I was a graduate student, I was starting out, I was working with a great scientist named Don Nelson, amazing guy, technically incredible. And Yannis knows him. Yeah, well, you may have been a student as a.
No, I never met him. I was Chris Lowe's student, so I
I know
came
you're a
in.
Chris Lowe student, but
Yeah, I came in a few years after he died, unfortunately. But he was also a big influence on me.
of course, because we're a family. There's Don, there's myself, then my students. So Don, uh, Chris Lowe, who's a terrific scientist, and his students. So I'm in the office with Don, this was before people had ever gotten many people had gotten in the water with sharks. Everybody thought they were all man eaters. Okay, this is back in the late '70s. Okay, that's how old I am. And he pulls out this scrap of paper, and on it is typed. And it's from this. He was the curator, Earl Held, of the San Francisco Aquarium. He died actually, but he had seen at this mountain, this underwater mountain, Las Animas, in the middle of nowhere in the Gulf Coast, these schools of hammerhead sharks. And Dodd looked me in the eye and he said, "Now, if you really want to study sharks, you should get in the water to study these." And then he said, "But hammerheads are the third most dangerous of all sharks." So I spent a whole year looking for them. One day, off Sarava, not far from La Paz, we jumped in the water. There they were. And so we went back to La Paz and we brought this sound system to attract them. And we lowered it down, the speaker down in the water to about 100 feet. And there I am with my scuba gear, waiting for the sharks to arrive. As you said, boom, 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 boom. We'd studied this, these sounds attract silky sharks. None of them arrived. So I come to the surface and I'm sitting there with Don and we're saying, "Jesus, what's wrong?" And we had a fellow named Ted Rilsley. He was a volunteer, a wonderful swimmer, and he had to go to the bathroom. So he gets in the water and he's going to the bathroom. And he says, "They're here." And we realized that at that moment that the scuba, because we'd studied sound, was making these sounds that frighten the sharks, the bubbles coming up to the surface. So we put on our snorkels, we swam out, and we could see these sharks vaguely underneath us in a school. And I took a big breath and I dove down, and suddenly the sharks are on either side of me. I could touch them, I'd go right through them. They're not eating me. But then I looked, they got small mouths. Why the hell are they going to eat me? I'm too big to beat for a bite. So I get underneath and I'm looking up, and it's beautiful when you see them and came to the surface. And then that led to studies of hammerhead sharks. That's how I got started on studying sharks, because I wanted to do it. I had read Dian Fossey, who everybody had studied gorillas from cages, and I want to do that. And Dian Fossey got outside a cage and got next to gorillas and studied them. And so I wanted to do what she had done, a woman. I wanted to imitate what she had done with sharks. So